Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Paul Weymouth and I'm going to talk about my reading year in 2019. I'm going to cover my personal stuff in another video, but this video is going to be what I read during the year, how I felt about my reading during the year, and showing you guys some stats and some different things like that. And I'm actually going to be using my Goodreads to show you everything. This probably will be a little bit of a longer video, so sit back, relax, and let's talk about some books that I've read this year, okay? So let's get right to it. My cursor usually is not pink. It's pink for this video, just for you guys. So 2019, my year in books. This will change a little bit in the next 2 days. I will finish 2 more things and it'll be 152 books, and the pages will go up to 45,000. So I'm pretty happy about that. This year I counted in my graphic novels with my books that I've read, so I counted everything basically, and that really pushed up my number. If I compare this number to previous year's numbers, 2018 was 131 books, but that was actually just books. That was not graphic novels. And the page count is really close. So I think I read more books last year. I think I read more audiobooks last year. But I am pretty happy with the growth in my reading from year to year. I'm definitely expecting next year to be a little bit lower though, just because of school. Okay. Let's go ahead, before I go into the actual books, let's look at some of my shelves that I created to help me keep track of things. So in 2019, it says I've read 149 things. The reason why it says this is because I reread a couple things, and it doesn't count it twice on this shelf. I read 27 graphic works during this year, which is lower than the usual. I just wasn't all that interested in graphic works as much. However, I did enjoy the ones that I did read, and I did borrow quite a few of them from the library. The only ones that I've actually read from my own collection was the Star Wars graphic novels, and the I Hate Fairyland, the second volume. So that's one thing in 2020 that I definitely want to do more of, is reading the graphic novels and comic books that I actually do own instead of getting them from the library. In 2019, I read 32 audiobooks. So around the month of November, I got really burned out with audiobooks, and I haven't read really an audiobook since October. I think the last one I did was the Gladwell Maxwell, something like, what's his name? Gladwell Malcolm, that's it. Yeah, that's the last one that I've read. So most of my audiobook usage this year was from nonfiction. I really got into nonfiction, but I also have some fiction in here. You know, I enjoyed my audiobooks this year, but I don't know what's going on. I just feel very burned out with audiobooks. I have no clue why, and I need to fix that in 2020. Magazines, I've only read 9 issues of magazines. I read a Locust, all of the Uncannies, and then a few Clarkesworld. This will go up to 10 after I finish the current Clarkesworld. A little bit disappointed in that. I read 44 things from my own shelf. These are things that I've bought or had on my shelf in 2019. I'm pretty happy with this. This is more than what I usually do, but I would like for this to be even higher in 2020. And there are a lot of all those Star Wars graphic novels kind of filled that up. There was 8 of them, so that makes that a little bit lower. I read 51 nonfiction books. And this was not something I was actually planning to do. I just ended up reading a lot more nonfiction this year than previous years, and I really like nonfiction now. However, it it really takes away from my enjoyment of fiction. When I switch back and forth a lot, it's hard for me to get into it. Physical library, I borrowed 75 things from the library. Oh, I should mention that all the audiobooks I listened to were borrowed from the library. And then I borrowed 75 things from the library. I believe that's including the audiobooks. So that's pretty good. I did not keep track of my single comics that I read during this year. I just did not want to do it this year. Alright, so let's take a look at some more things on my year in books. Shortest book was a little thing I got from Worldcon. Some Japanese short fiction that I didn't really care for. And the longest book was, I read through the NIV Bible this year, and that took forever, and that was a huge commitment. You can see here, Catcher in the Rye was the most popular. I didn't really like it at all. My average rating for the year was about 3.2. Usually my average ratings are between 3 and 3.5 for the whole year. So this is fine with me. So I started out the year reading an Uncanny issue, and it was just alright. And then I read some nonfiction and some audiobooks and some things that I had on my shelf, because that's what I wanted to do at the beginning of the year. I really enjoyed Ender's Game. I thought it was much better than what I thought it was going to be. Unfortunately, I didn't care for Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials. I read all 3 of those at the beginning of the year, and I just wasn't too impressed whatsoever. The Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics, I liked Dan Harris's books. I enjoyed that. And then around, I think it was around February and March is when I really got into like productivity and time management books. And I absolutely loved the books that I read during this time. The Productivity Project was fantastic. Grit was really good. Essentialism was probably one of the best books I've read all year. It really changed my view on a lot of things and how to put the most important things first in your life and try to get rid of all of the distractions. And then I got into the John Gwynne series, and I really liked that. It was that fantasy book, that series that I really connect with, just because it's my type of thing. It's very good. So then around this time I was like, okay, I am going to start grad school in the fall. Let's start reading something for grad school. So I read some information science books, and I was really keeping track of my reading. And I was reading more nonfiction to kind of get me prepared for grad school. Atomic Habits, Deep Work, Digital Minimalism, and the aforementioned Essentialism were probably the most influential books for me this entire year. They really changed the way I view work and how I view habits, and I am so thankful I read those books. If you're looking for something to get into that talks about habits, that talks about how to focus and how to just really do deep work, I would recommend those 3 books quite a bit. And I did something that I never have done before. I listened to a book and then I read the book right after I listened to it. So with Atomic Habits and then the Jordan Peterson book, 12 Rules for Life, I listened to them on audiobook and then I read them in physical book form as well. I wanted to see if I could retain the information more if I did that. And what I found was I retained the information of the book that I enjoyed, which was Atomic Habits, and I didn't retain the information of the book that I didn't enjoy, which was the 12 Rules for Life. So what I found is it doesn't matter how often I'm reading something or if I read something twice. If I enjoyed it and was really obsessed with the book, then it'll make a longer impact The Power of Habit was so good. Then we get down to more fantasy. Claire North book, some more John Gwynne. I decided to reread the Trader Baruch Cormorant because I didn't really like it the first time I read it. I listened to it on the audiobook the second time, and I liked it more, but it still wasn't that great. Then around this time, I start reading for the Hugos. So we have the Martha Wells books, the Murderbot series, and I enjoyed these, but I wasn't enamored with them as much as everybody else. I thought they progressively got weaker as you read through them, and by the time I got to Exit Strategy, I wasn't all that interested in the outcome, but it could definitely be because of my mood. I found that I did not care for the Parasol Protectorate series. I read the second and third book in that series and decided not to continue with that. Really liked the last Binti, even though I didn't like the first one that much. I really need to read more of P. Djeli Clark. I loved the Tea Master and the Detective, Trail of Lightning. Space Opera, not so great. Lost Connections by Johann Hari was a great look at depression and what can cause depression from outside sources that I thought was fantastic. Let's see, I went into, this is around late spring, early summer area. Absolutely loved Skyward. Thought it was fantastic. Sadie by Summers was really good. I really wanted to like A Memory Called Empire, but I ended up just not connecting with it all the way. And that has been a trend throughout the year. These very, I want to say, intellectual, character-based science fiction books, they're very hit or miss with me. So this one here, it was good. I enjoyed it, but it probably won't be like my favorite book of the year, like a lot of people's. Okay, so we have Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday, which is another one of these nonfiction books that was so instrumental for me in this year. It really put things in perspective, and I need to buy a copy of this because it's something that I should revisit probably once every year. It definitely just humbles you and makes you realize that you don't have to always try to be your best all the time. So I read more R.A. Salvatore books. I wanted to finish out that specific part in the series, and I've decided not to continue anymore with his books. They were great when I was a kid, but as an adult, I just can't really connect with them as much. I read my first Silvia Moreno Garcia book and really enjoyed it. Great writer, excellent prose. I read my first Louis McMaster Bujold book. Fantastic. We'll continue with her series, the Vorkosigan Saga. The Glass Castle was a better memoir than The Educated. Recursion was a lot of fun. Minimalism, I listened to their podcast, wanted to read the book. It's basically the same thing as the podcast, but I still liked it. And then I got into my Star Wars books. Finally read the Ted Chiang collections. Loved them both. I thought Exhalation was a little better. Fantastic books. Really enjoyed those. Was disappointed with An Absent Dream. The more I read of Shauna McGuire, the more I'm not sure if she is completely for me or not. Finally read Magician and Magician Master by Raymond E. Feist. Yeah, those were great books. I need to continue that series, and I enjoyed that. Very comfy fantasy. At the end of the year, I'm realizing I need to read more of the things in 2020 that I know that I'm going to love, and that's comfort fantasy for me. Range by David Epstein really opened up my eyes to what it is to be a specialist in the world and to be successful. All right, let's open some more up here. Absolutely loved This Is How You Lose in Time Lore by El Motar, Max Gladstone. One of my few favorite 5-star books of the year. I loved it. It's going to be my novella that I nominate for the Hugos. Fantastic. A lot of people were talking about the Girl from the Other Side, so I tried that. It's okay. Hated this Castle book. Was very disappointed in the Disabled People Destroy Fantasy edition of Uncanny. The science fiction edition was so much better. Hillbilly Elegy was good. Cordelia's Honor was fantastic. Magic for Liars, when I read it, it was not that great. However, after thinking about it over the year, it really made an impact that I didn't realize it did, and it made me kind of understand characterization a little bit more and the role that an author's life plays into putting their books into the world. The Art of Relevance was great. I had to use that for a project. Sapiens was fantastic. Gideon the Ninth. So this was during a time when I wasn't making many videos because I was really busy during grad school, and I just wanted to mention something about Gideon the Ninth. I enjoyed it. I thought it reminded me of a lot of the video games I used to play as a kid. Yes, it's an uneven book, and yes, it's not a well-written book, but it was a fun book, so I enjoyed that. Did not care for Rosemary and Rue by McGuire. Talking to Strangers was good. It's a very, people have really strong feelings about this book, but I thought it was fantastic. Uncanny, there was one issue in here that I really enjoyed. I might do a separate video on my favorite Uncanny stories. But overall, Uncanny's year was not as good as previous years, in my opinion. There was only a few standout stories for me. So then I got into a few things during the fall here. Half a King, I reread that. I thought it was a better book the second time I read it. Half the World, I thought that was a stronger book. And I did not care for the Paul Cornell novella. I listened to that. I enjoyed Witch Boy. I enjoyed Starsight by Sanderson. I really enjoyed Gods of Jade and Shadow. I really enjoyed In the Dream House. Those are great books. So that brings us up to our current books that I just read. Starless Sea was good. Ancestral Night was one of those books that I was talking about earlier. Very character-based sci-fi with a lot of thinking and philosophy, and it was good, but it really wasn't my thing. So now I am currently reading. I have to go a few things that will push me over to 152, and that is the November issue of Clarkesworld. And then A Way of Shadows, the first book by Brent Weeks. Once again, I'm going back to that fantasy that is kind of comfort for me, the things that I enjoy reading. And this is much more grimdark than I thought it was. I did not know that. But I am enjoying it quite a bit. It would probably be one of my favorite books of the year. So in all, everyone, I enjoyed this reading year. I thought that I had a good mixture of fiction and nonfiction. I'm the type of person that I can find fault and issue with anything. Unfortunately, I'm trying to change that about myself. And regardless of how perfect my reading would be for the year, I would still find areas of improvement. So the biggest area of improvement that I saw is I want to read more of the things that I enjoy reading, and that means things I've already bought that have been sitting on my shelf for a very long time. And I want to read more short fiction as well. I want to read less nonfiction, and I want to get back with my love of audiobooks of fiction and get my focus back so that I can be able to listen to those again. So I'll make another video talking about what my plans are for 2020, and I'm so excited. Whoops. If you guys never watched my channel or talked to me, you would know that I absolutely love New Year. It is my favorite holiday. I get so excited to plan what I'm going to do in the new year, how I'm going to change, the things I'm going to strive for, the books I'm going to read. I just absolutely love it, and I love looking back on the year and all the things that I've done. So I'm looking forward to more videos kind of summarizing 2019 and looking forward to 2020. So thanks for watching. I know this one was a little long, but I thought this kind of format would be kind of fun. Talk to you all later.